Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. As tensions continue to mount between the United States and Iran, the New York Times reports the Pentagon's drawn up a plan to send as many as 120,000 troops to the Middle East if President Trump decides to take military action against Iran. The U.S. recently deployed a carrier strike group and a bomber task force to the region, claiming there was a credible threat by Iranian regime forces. Meanwhile, the European Union's urging the Trump administration to show maximum restraint following a meeting Monday between Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and European Union diplomats in Brussels. Iran has announced it'll stop complying with parts of the landmark 2015 nuclear deal if other signatories of the deal do not take action to shield Iran's oil and banking sectors from U.S. sanctions. We'll have more on Iran after headlines. President Trump welcomed Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban to the White House Monday. The far-right nationalist leader is known for his hardline anti-immigrant policies and rolling back democratic institutions and checks on his power. This is Orban and Trump speaking from the Oval Office.
We have some similar approaches, and I would like to express that we are proud to stand together with the United States on fighting against illegal migration, on terrorism, and to protect and help the Christian communities all around the world.
I know he's a tough man, but he's a respected man, and he's done the right thing, according to many people, on immigration. And you look at some of the problems that they have in Europe that are tremendous because they've done it a different way than the Prime Minister.
Trump's predecessors, Presidents Obama and George W. Bush, declined to host Orban over concerns about his leadership. Orban has closed down Hungary's southern border, building a razor-wire fence to keep out refugees, many of them from Syria, and deported refugees already in the country. China announced Monday plans to raise tariffs on $60 billion worth of U.S. goods starting June 1st. The announcement came after the two nations failed to reach a deal as trade negotiations closed last Friday, and as President Trump followed through on his threat to hike tariffs on $200 billion worth of Chinese imports. Trump also says he plans to raise tariffs on the $325 billion worth of remaining Chinese imports. The stock market tumbled following the news, with the Dow dropping over 600 points Monday. Trump told reporters Monday he would use some of the expected tariff revenue to help subsidize farmers, saying they can sell for less and make as much money until it's straightened out. Our farmers will be happy, Trump said. Economists and Trump's own economic advisor, Larry Kudlow, have refuted Trump's claims that China will bear the economic brunt of the increased tariffs, saying consumers will bear it in the United States. In the Philippines, early results from Monday's midterm elections indicate strong-arm President Rodrigo Duterte has further consolidated his power as his allies lead in races across the Philippines. The results could tilt the government's makeup in his favor, removing political barriers to some of his more draconian proposals. The president's oldest daughter, Sara Duterte, has handily re-elected as mayor of Davao City, while most of the senatorial candidates she supported have also won their races. She is seen by many as next in line to head the Philippines, according to independent Filipino news site Rappler. An election watchdog reported incidents of violence, machine malfunctions, and voter disenfranchisement throughout the day. In related news, Maria Ressa, the award-winning editor and founder of Rappler, was arraigned today on one count of cyber libel. Ressa, who's been a vocal critic of President Duterte and his drug war, has been systematically targeted for her reporting. Her lawyers say the case may head to the Supreme Court. To see her interviews on Democracy Now!, go to democracynow.org. In Sudan, at least 6 protesters and a member of security forces were killed when security and paramilitary forces opened fire on crowds outside military headquarters in the capital, Khartoum, Monday. Dozens more were injured. Earlier in the day, the Transitional Military Council said they reached an agreement with protest leaders on a transitional power structure. Demonstrators have been demanding a transfer from military to civilian rule. This is protester Rasha Ali.
We will not accept being treated like we have been treated by the previous and current regimes, whether Bashir or others. We have been treated in ways that are unacceptable by anyone. This scenario will not be repeated.
Also on Monday, deposed President Omar al-Bashir was charged in the killing of protesters during the popular uprising, which led to his overthrow last month. One of the deaths being investigated is that of a doctor who was shot dead while assisting injured protesters. In Sri Lanka, a Muslim man was killed Monday in northwestern province as ongoing violence and attacks against Muslim targets has led authorities to impose an indefinite curfew in the region. A nationwide curfew in the rest of Sri Lanka has been relaxed. A number of Muslim-owned businesses, homes and places of worship have been vandalized after 2 days of rioting in the northern province as Muslims celebrate the holy month of Ramadan. In response, Sri Lanka also again blocked popular social media networks and apps they say were responsible for the violent acts, including Facebook and WhatsApp. Tensions in Sri Lanka have been on the rise since last month's Easter suicide bomb massacre, which killed at least 257 people in churches and hotels. Back in the United States, the Supreme Court ruled Monday consumers can sue Apple for exercising a monopoly over the apps market. The court, however, did not determine whether or not Apple does, in fact, have a monopoly on the market, and a class action lawsuit will likely now move ahead in lower courts. Apple charges a 30% sales commission to app developers while excluding them from making sales outside their app store. Meanwhile, Apple has its own set of competing services like Apple News Plus and an upcoming streaming service. Justice Brett Kavanaugh joined the liberal justices in its 5-4 ruling. In more technology news, WhatsApp urged its 1.5 billion users to update their apps after it was revealed hackers found a way to remotely install surveillance software on smartphones and other personal devices via the popular messaging app. The attack was reportedly orchestrated by Israeli security firm NSO Group. NSO has been implicated in surveillance efforts on behalf of the Saudi and Mexican governments. The Committee to Protect Journalists warned that journalists, lawyers, activists, and human rights defenders were the most likely targets of the attack. WhatsApp is owned by Facebook. The New York Times is reporting Attorney General William Barr has assigned federal prosecutor John Durham in Connecticut to look into the origins of the FBI's investigation into possible ties between the Trump campaign and Russian interference in the 2016 election. Barr has referred to the FBI's court-authorized activities as spying during congressional testimony, raising alarm among Democrats who've accused Barr of acting as Trump's personal attorney in the wake of his handling of the Mueller report. 2 other investigations into the Russia probe are ongoing. In Oakland, California, Monsanto has been ordered to pay its highest damages yet in the 3rd lawsuit over the popular weed killer Roundup. A jury has ordered Monsanto, which is owned by the German pharmaceutical giant Bayer, to pay more than $2 billion in punitive damages to Alva and Alberta Piliad, a couple who were both diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer after using Roundup on their properties for over 30 years. The main ingredient in the herbicide is glyphosate and is said to cause cancer. Attorneys for the plaintiffs estimate there are tens of thousands of similar cases against Roundup pending in courts around the United States. This is attorney Brent Wisner speaking after the verdict was announced.
Monsanto keeps denying that it causes cancer, and these 2 fine people here are casualties of that deception. This is going to continue until Monsanto and now Bayer takes responsibility for its product. People are dying. People are getting sick. And they have no idea that it's being caused by Roundup.
Earlier this month, the EPA said glyphosate is not carcinogenic. However, other scientific studies and the World Health Organization have found that human exposure can, in fact, lead to cancer. In more environmental news, carbon levels in the atmosphere registered 415 parts per million over the weekend, a level that has not been seen in over 3 million years. The reading was observed at an observatory in Hawaii and is the latest indicator of the fast-growing threat of atmospheric carbon concentration driving climate change. Meteorologist Eric Holthaus tweeted, "Not just in recorded history, not just since the invention of agriculture 10,000 years ago, since before modern humans existed millions of years ago, we don't know a planet like this," he said. In New York City, a disciplinary hearing is underway for a white police officer who killed unarmed African-American Eric Garner in 2014 by putting him in a chokehold and refusing to let go, even as Garner repeatedly gasped, "I can't breathe," 11 times. Officer Daniel Pantaleo never faced criminal prosecution after a grand jury decided not to indict him. He's remained on the police force but could lose his job if found guilty of violating NYPD procedures, which bans the use of chokeholds. Montana Governor Steve Bullock is the latest Democrat to enter the crowded field for the 2020 presidential nomination. Bullock is hoping his electoral success in a red state can help boost his appeal among primary voters who now have nearly 24 candidates to consider. He previously served as Montana's Attorney General. In his announcement video, Bullock vowed to fight corruption in D.C. and put an end to big money in political campaigns. Although more of a centrist than many of his fellow contenders, Bullock has pushed progressive policies like expanding Medicaid and protecting public lands in Montana. Governor Bullock came under fire earlier this year after it was revealed he failed to disclose that a former employee was fired for sexual harassment after the employee was hired by New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. And in Washington, D.C., 4 activists remain in the Venezuelan embassy after police raided the building Monday night. Activists with Code Pink, Answer Coalition, and other groups have been occupying the building since late April at the invitation of Venezuela's government in order to prevent it being taken over by Venezuela's U.S.-backed opposition led by Juan Guaido. Last week, authorities cut off water and electricity to the embassy. As they were on the verge of being raided, activists released a video statement vowing to continue the fight.
We're not going to leave voluntarily. We came here to protect the embassy. We've been here for 34 days. We will stay longer if necessary. We hope that this still results in an agreement between Venezuela and the United States to protect this embassy from the fake government, the fake coup non-government that the U.S. is pushing forward. So we're here. We're still resisting.
As Kevin Zeese of Popular Resistance. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our viewers and listeners across the country and around the world.